Hello, my name is Shashi Tripathi, and I'm from the Indian Foreign Service, retired now. I was Ambassador of India to Poland from 1994 to 1997, and the story I'm going to tell you today is called Little Poland in India. This story of Little Poland in India goes back to the Second World War. The year was 1942. Germany had attacked Poland and Warsaw was razed to the ground. Polish men, women, Jews, gypsies, they were all rounded up and sent to concentration camp. The war destroyed Poland, it tore the country apart, and it rendered many of the children homeless. At this time, some people who could escape escaped to Russia with their families. But the demons that they were trying to avoid caught up with them even there. Russia joined the war, and all able-bodied Polish men were drafted into the army. It was then decided to at least save some children. So 640 children and a few adult chaperones were put on a ship to seek refuge in some friendly country. Some people put this figure at 800, some put it at 1,000, but the figure that I have is 640 children. Why this story resonates with us is because even in contemporary times, we have seen wars and conflicts spawning hundreds of thousands of refugees, men, women, and especially children, who tug at the hearts. When you see these photographs, they tug at your heart, and they end mostly in tragic endings, except for some who find refuge in safety. The story of the Polish children ends happily because of India and a kind-hearted Indian called the Jam Saheb of Nawanagar. Now, this ship on which these children were, it tried to seek the safety of many countries, but wherever they went, they were refused support. Finally, the ship came and docked in Bombay, and that is where the Jam Saheb of Nawanagar heard about the plight of these Polish children, and he persuaded the British government to let the ship come and dock in his port. It was called the Rossi port in his province. The British government agreed, and so the children disembarked in Nawanagar. I believe the Jam Saheb, while welcoming these children, is supposed to have said, "You are no longer orphans. Don't consider yourself homeless. You are now Navanagaris, and I am Bapu, father to all the people of Nawanagar, so also yours." In fact, he went to the extent of adopting these children legally, and he sent the instrument of adoption to the British government in New Delhi. Once the children were in Nawanagar, the Jam Saheb then set about creating a happy home for them as far as conditions allowed. At first, he set up a tented township. This was very soon converted into brick and mortar barracks where these children were housed. He also set up a school and a church and made sure they had recreational facilities. He went to the extent of getting 7 cooks from Goa so that non-vegetarian food could be made for these children. We must remember that he belonged to a vegetarian land, but he went out of his way to make them feel at home. Now, who was this man? Who was this man who adopted and became a surrogate father to hundreds of strange children from a far-off land? This was the Jam Saheb of Nawanagar, Digvijaysinhji Ranjitsinhji Jadeja. He was born in Sadodar in Gujarat, studied in Rajkot and in the University College of London. He was born in 1895 and died in 1966 at the age of about 70 years. But in those 70 years, he left a remarkable imprint on some people from a different land. He joined the army in 1919 and put in 20 years of military service, started as second lieutenant and then retired as lieutenant general in 1931. In 1933, he took over from his uncle. He succeeded his uncle, Ranjitsinhji, the famous cricketer who had adopted him as his heir. And then he began to follow the policies of his uncle, policies of development and social service. Throughout his life, the Jam is supposed to have received a number of awards and citations, medals. He was knighted in 1935. He joined the Chamber of Princes and led it from 1937 to 1943. Keeping up with the cricketing traditions of his famous cricketer uncle, he became president of the BCCI for 2 years. He also played one first-class match, and that was against the MCC. He captained Western India against the MCC in his tour of India and Ceylon. Sadly, in his 2 innings, he only scored a duck and 6 runs. At independence, he signed the Instrument of Accession and joined the Dominion of India, merging his province with Kathiawar, and served as its Raj Pramukh till 1956. Now, the Jam Saheb may not have scored very well in cricket, may have scored only a duck. But in the department of being human, he scored really big. He made sure that these children were really happy where they lived, given the circumstances of the time. As I mentioned, at the camp, these children celebrated all kinds of festivals. In fact, the Jam insisted that they celebrate all Indian and Polish festivals. And given the fact that India has so many festivals, there must have been a really festive atmosphere around this camp. Now, this camp worked until 1945. And then these children were transferred. It was closed down, and these children were transferred to Valivade in Kolhapur. In 1946, the war had ended, and it was decided that these children would go back to their homeland. It was difficult for them in the beginning because some of them had no parents at all, and it was difficult to find the kin or even extended relatives. But as we all know, life is resilient, and so were these children. And so they tried to set up their lives once again, to mend their tattered existence and to start afresh. 50 years later, in 1995, I met some of these people in Warsaw. I had gone as Ambassador of India to Poland. And the story goes like this. I one day received an invitation from an organization called Digvijaysinhji, Children of India. Now, I was quite intrigued because Poland at that time hardly had any Indian expatriates except for a handful of students. So I wondered who these children of India were. Anyway, I went to this event, and at this reunion of Digvijaysinhji, I found these people who were now middle-aged, some were pretty old, but all full of nostalgia and love for India. At this meeting, I must say, was very emotional for me, and it was for them too. But at this meeting, some of them did narrate to me their experiences in India. One of them told me their routine that they followed. And she said their daily routine centered around activities of school, church, and scouting. She says there were many recreational facilities, there were sports teams, and there was also a choir. The other person said to me that the Jam Saheb had brought 7 cooks from Goa, as I mentioned. But these kids were not fond of spinach. So one day they went on a spinach strike. Now, when Bapu heard about this, he ordered the cooks never to make spinach again. A third person struck a really emotional note because he said that he was a patriotic Polish, and yet a part of his heart was back there in India. He said, I've never been able to settle down comfortably in Poland because I feel that India is my home too. Now, that shows that these 4 years that these children spent in India were life-changing for them, life-transforming for them, and they left an impact on their minds and their personalities. Nawanagar had saved the life of these children, and they never forgot. Oh, I must mention that there was a love story too out there. See, one of these people, I think it was Jerzy Tomaszek, who told me that he met his wife at the camp. He was 15 and his wife was 12 or 13. They fell in love. But then they came back to Poland. They tried to set up their lives. They lost touch with each other. But once they were settled, they got in touch once again. They revived their friendship and they got married. So India acted as a Cupid for this couple. Now, as I said, Nawanagar had saved their lives, and these children never really forgot. So in 1985, some of them came back to reconnect with their childhood. Now, the camp was no longer there. Whatever was left of the camp had been merged with the scenic school, which is there now in the 300-acre estate. All that is there is now 2 water tanks, a banyan tree, and the Jam's summer palace in the distance. The people who knew these children, the villagers around there, the doctors who looked after them, they have all passed away. But these children wanted some memorial, a memory that would be everlasting, that would show their gratitude to India and to this person. So they commissioned a plaque. And the plaque is in bronze. It is sculpted by a Polish artist. And it shows a woman in a sari who's holding a child in her arms. And in the other hand, she holds an older child who is clinging to her sari. The symbolism was that this woman is Mother India, who, in spite of her own problems and challenges at that time, gave equal love and affection to a Polish child. I would like to read out this inscription to you. The inscription on one side is in Hindi, and on the other side, it is in Polish. And the Hindi inscription goes like this. O dur ki bhumi, bhumi kripalu, bhumi dayalu, sad bhumi vande. And then it says, Jamnagar ki bhumi ko pranam, जिसने द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध के कठोर क्षणों के दौरान हमारे बेघर बच्चों को सहायता दी, शरण दी और अपना अतिथि बनाया। आभारी है पोलिश की जनता और बालाचड़ी जामनगर शिविर के वो पोलिश छात्र जो 1942 से 1946 तक यहाँ रहे। And the English translation, thanks to the land of Jamnagar, which during the difficult moments of the Second World War, gave refuge to hundreds of Polish children and treated them as welcome guests. The people of Poland are grateful, as are students of the Balachari Jamnagar camp, who stayed here from 1942 to 1946. And below that, there is a quatrain which says, "Hail, O far-off land, land of compassion, land of generosity, O virtuous land, hail." There is another plaque there. If you go today, you will see one more plaque, and this is a smaller one. And this relates the assistance that the Polish people and the Polish government gave to that region of Jamnagar after the devastating earthquake of 2002. Actually, it was in this earthquake that even those barracks, some of the barracks where the children lived, came down. But the Polish government then set up 2 waterworks and a hospital, reconstructed the hospital and a pathology lab that now functions in this site. In fact, this site of Balachari has become a kind of a pilgrimage for Polish people. And they come here even though the camp doesn't remain. There is no sign of the camp anymore, but they come here regardless, one, to reconnect with their childhood and also to thank this country which gave them refuge during a different time. There can be no better tribute than this to the love and affection and generosity that this country has always been famous for. In 2016, the Polish government, in recognition of India and the assistance given by the Jam Saheb of Nawanagar, adopted a special resolution in their parliament. And this was a resolution to thank India for the support given to these children during the Second World War. They also named a school after the Jam Saheb, and also a square in Warsaw, which is called the Good Maharaja Square, Dobrego Maharaji. In conclusion, I would like to say that the act of India at this time opened up the hearts and homes of many other people and countries to refugees of the Second World War. And the British government found it easier then to relocate Polish adults to different friendly countries in West Asia and in Africa. All these people, most of these people, have gone back. But the link and the bond that was formed between India and the Polish children has never broken. It has stood the test of time. So what is proved by this story is that down history, if you look at the pages of history, there have been wars and tumult and conflicts and murder and mayhem. But on the other side, to balance this, there have been stories of chivalry, of courage, of compassion, of love. And finally, these are the values that make the world go round. Thank you.